Our next question comes from a viewer named Mike Mitchell, who asks, where are the springs in Colorado Springs? That's a good question, Mike. So it turns out that Colorado Springs is a touch of a misnomer. It should be Colorado Spring. The town was first established in the early 1870s. William Jackson Palmer and William Bell connected Colorado Springs and Manitou Springs. According to the Pioneer Museum down there, the founders thought that Colorado Springs would be good for homes, churches, schools, and businesses, and then Manitou would be like the neighboring resort town where people would go up and enjoy the springs. The lack of actual springs in Colorado Springs seems to have been a bit of a joke for locals early on until a doctor made a discovery in 1880.
You could say there was almost a delight and a relief to locals that a spring was finally found, and the Gazette even went to the lengths of publishing an article about the discovery of the springs, and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially they said, now the locals can finally be rid of the tiresome jokes about the springless springs. Finally, we have our own spring.
So they went and turned it into a spring thing. It's on the west side of downtown in Monument Valley Park. In 1926, leaders there renamed it Tehama Spring. They built a pavilion around it. Then 9 years later was the Great Memorial Day flood. It damaged the spring and the pavilion. Then another flood came along 30 years later in '65 and wiped the pavilion out altogether. So they just capped off the spring. It's just that pile of rocks there in the park. You could walk right by it and not realize that is the Colorado Spring. This is not the end of the story. That's the plan that the Historic Preservation Alliance of Colorado Springs has to try and bring back Tehama Spring, rebuild the pavilion, and once again, make the spring a thing.
Subscribe to the Next YouTube channel for the best of Next and some other stuff.